appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. This is from the book of Revelation, chapter 12, verse 1, the Webster's Bible translation. Welcome to our video on astrology chart revelations for Our Lady of Fatima, third apparition complete with horoscope houses, zodiac angels, and planetary aspects. This is for July 13th of 1917. Focused upon Fatima, Portugal for location, and at 12 noon, which means Zohar. Yes, this was the occasion of three shepherd children's third apparition of Blessed Virgin Mary in Fatima, Portugal, and we are using calculations for July 13th, 1917, which was her third original appearance to Lucia, Jacinta, and Francisco. First, our disclaimer. Watching this video or reading this document is an act of spiritual willpower, and any such action is considered magic. High magic should be used with all mindfulness, since powerful forces of manifestation are unleashed. This is intended exclusively for entertainment purposes. I'm Pastor Rosemary, the Astrology Angel. If you'd like to learn how to contact me for a spiritual consultation or psychic astrology, please visit my website at www.readingsbyrosemary.com. Our Lady appeared to the three shepherd children for a third time on July 13th of 1917, making July 13th, 2018, the 101st anniversary of many miracles performed by Our Lady of Fatima. Now, also, you can please see my video that's entitled this is the third apparition for July 13th. So I have a video. This one's for the year 1917, but I have a video for the 101st anniversary for July 13th, and I have made a video on that, so please see that one as well. Okay, now, according to Catholic Catechism, Jacinto and Francisco's father reported that he saw a little gray-colored cloud, which was then suspended over the home oak tree as the third apparition started. The sun's light dimmed, and a chilly light wind began to blow, originating from the mountains, even though during July it was usually summertime in Portugal. Lucia Santos, Jacinta Marto, and her brother Francisco Marto stated that during the third apparition they witnessed a bright, dazzling light as they then saw Our Lady of Fatima standing above the home oak tree. The conversation between Shepherdess Lucia Santos, Shepherdess Jacinta Marto, Shepherd Francisco Marto, and Our Lady is reported to have progressed thusly. Lucia posed a question to Our Lady of Fatima, quote, "What does your grace wish of me?" unquote. Our Lady of Fatima responded, quote, "I want you to come here on the 13th of next month to continue to say the Rosary every day in honor of Our Lady of the Rosary in order to obtain peace for the world and the end of the war, for she alone can be of any avail," unquote. Lucia then queried, quote, "I would like to ask you to tell us who you are and to perform a miracle so everyone will believe that your grace appears to us," unquote. Our Lady of Fatima then instructed, quote, "You must continue to come here every month. In October, I will tell you who I am and what I wish. I will then perform a miracle that everyone shall see so as to believe," unquote. Lucia proceeded to petition Our Lady of Fatima to grant the conversion of souls, as well as cures for various diseases and restorations of injured persons. Our Lady of Fatima repeated that praying the Rosary would allow much of the grace, for which the children were requesting supplication that would last throughout that year. Our Lady of Fatima continued, quote, "Make sacrifices for sinners and say many times, especially when you make a sacrifice," this is a quote within her quote, "Oh Jesus," to pray to Jesus. Our Lady instructed to pray to Jesus, "Oh Jesus, this is for love of thee, for the conversion of sinners, and in reparation for the sins committed against the Immaculate Heart of Mary," unquote. And that was a quote within a quote. Now, according to Catholic Catechism, there were three parts to this third apparition. You've heard of the three secrets of Fatima, which constituted the three secrets of Fatima. Now we're going to present you all three secrets. Now the third secret there's some controversy about, so we're going to give you two versions. One may be an extension of the other, or one may be sort of a completion, but with something, a secret or a revelation, if you will, of something that was not maybe given at the time. Because there were instructions about when the secret should be given. We're going to get into all that. We're going to give you some historical background, because some of these secrets have already come true. That Our Lady predicted accurately, and she predicted wisely, and many of her predictions have already come true. Everything she said has happened. But see, people are able to God gives us ways to make things better if we so choose. So, but everything happened the way Our Lady said. She said, if you do this, this will happen. If you do this, that will happen. So we're going to show you how the third secret has two parts to it, or two versions is a better way to say it, or maybe a revelation. It's interesting that the word revelation in Greek, it's apocalypse. Okay, this is the third secret. The revelation of it is basically, as you can understand, it makes sense, the apocalypse. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. Now, first part one, the first secret, a vision of hell that Our Lady gave to the three children. Now, Shepherdess Lucia Santos wrote down that Our Lady of Fatima said to her in the first part of the vision of hell, quote, Our Lady showed us a great sea of fire which seemed to be under the earth. Plunged in this fire were demons and souls in human form, like transparent burning embers, all blackened or burnished bronze, floating about in a conflagration, now raised into the air by the flames that issued from within themselves, together with great clouds of smoke, now falling back on every side like sparks in a huge fire, without weight or equilibrium, and amid shrieks and groans of pain and despair, which horrified us and made us tremble with fear. The demons could be distinguished by their terrifying and repulsive likeness to frightful and unknown animals, all black and transparent. This vision lasted but an instant. How can we ever be grateful enough to our kind Heavenly Mother, who had already prepared us by promising in the first apparition to take us to heaven? Otherwise, I think we would have died of fear and terror. Unquote. Part 2, warning of punishment from God upon the earth and how to stop this chastisement. Again, this is the second secret. Now, the three shepherd children gazed up at Our Lady of Fatima, who then said to them in a compassionate, nevertheless melancholy manner, quote, You have seen hell, where the souls of poor sinners go. To save them, God wishes to establish in the world devotion to my Immaculate Heart. If what I say to you is done, many souls will be saved, and there will be peace. The war is going to end. But if people do not cease offending God, a worse one will break out during the pontificate of Pius XI. When you see a night illumined by an unknown light, know that this is the great sign given you by God, that He is about to punish the world for its crimes by means of war, famine, and persecutions of the Church and of the Holy Father. To prevent this, I shall come to ask for the consecration of Russia to my Immaculate Heart and the communion of reparation of the first Saturdays. On the first Saturdays. If my requests are heeded, Russia will be converted and there will be peace. If not, she will spread her errors throughout the world, causing wars and persecutions of the Church. The good will be martyred. The Holy Father will have much to suffer. Various nations will be annihilated. Finally, my Immaculate Heart will triumph. The Holy Father will consecrate Russia to me, and she shall be converted, and a period of peace will be granted to the world. In Portugal, the dogma of the faith will always be preserved. Unquote. An important aside we're interjecting here is that the portion of this statement of her, Blessed Mother's quote what she said, quote, in the second secret, illuminated by an unknown light, unquote. That occurred already. It occurred on January 28th, 1938. Now, part 3. Okay, this is the first version of the first revelation of the third secret. It's called the Heirs of Russia. There's either a revelation, like, you know, we have, sometimes we see in our on the internet, we see less and more, kind of like that maybe, except in those days they, you know, wrote it on letters, or, you know, it could be instead of, but it could just be, you know, just part of the secret that was not revealed to everybody right away. But we're going to get into the history of this. We're going to tell you all this now. Remember, this is, and we're going to also show you the astrology chart for Fatima, Portugal, for Noon, which is Zohar, 1917 on July 13th. Okay, because that's when the three secrets. That's when this was given. It came about. Now, okay, part 3, the secrets of Fatima, third secret, the Heirs of Russia. Now, another important aside that we're going to inject before we get into it, the third part of the secret of Fatima is questioned by some Catholics, being that some of the contents of the letter written by Lucia Santos might or might not have been kept secret by the Church even until the writing of this document. Okay, so now we're going to get into part 3 of Our Lady of Fatima's third apparition to Shepherdess Lucia Santos. Shepherdess Jacinta Marto and Shepherd Francisco Marto was one of predictions made by Our Lady of Fatima about world events centering around the country of Russia. Our Blessed Mother gave God's ultimatum that the world would be spared war and find peace if Russia was consecrated to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. If her words were not heeded and the world continued to offend God, then God's judgment through a great war, worse than the last, would ensue, was her warning. Another important aside here that we'd like to interject of historical data providing the accuracy of Our Lady's predictions at Fatima. Her predictions came true when, due to the rise of communism and an increased anti-Romanism against the Catholic Church, in addition to other geopolitical and economic factors, led the world into fascism, with Benito Mussolini becoming Prime Minister of Italy in 1922, Michi Inomiya Hirohito being Emperor of Japan in 1926, and Adolf Hitler becoming Chancellor of Germany in 1933, which resulted in his invasion of the country of Poland in 1939, which began World War II. At that time, Joseph Stalin was General Secretary of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, who became involved then by occupying Poland in 1939 in response to Germany's annexation only a little more than 2 weeks after Adolf Hitler's takeover of Poland. Russia was indeed consecrated to the Immaculate Heart of Mary in 1952 by Pope Pius XII, who also consecrated the entire world to her Immaculate Heart 10 years earlier in 1942. In recent years, President Vladimir Putin has done much to restore religious tradition, encouraging the faith of Christian Orthodoxy in Russia, which has resulted in his great success of restoring strength and vitality to the country he leads, with this being the major faith in Russia today. Now we're going to get into, okay, that's our historical, you know, one to keep you up to date with that. Now, alternately, the third part is thus. This is the part, the second version, or the revelation, the, you know, see more of this that might have not all been shown right away. This is again a portion, a revelation, apocalypse of the third secret. Okay, this is the second version, or the revelation, the extension of it. Alternately, again, the third part is thus: Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, quote, the message of Fatima, unquote. Some documents presented in Catholic Catechism classes provide this alternate third part of the secret of Fatima, stating that Shepherdess Lucia Santos then writes, quote, after the two parts which I have already explained at the left of Our Lady and a little above, we saw an angel with a flaming sword in his left hand, flashing it. It gave out flames that looked as though they would set the world on fire, but they died out in contact with the splendor that Our Lady radiated towards him. From her right hand, pointing to the earth with his right hand, the angel cried out in a loud voice, "Penance, penance, penance." And we saw, that was a penance, penance, penance was a quote within Lucia's quote of what happened. Okay, now continue with Lucia. We're still within Lucia's quote. And we saw in an immense light, that is God, something similar to how people appear in a mirror when they pass in front of it. A bishop dressed in white. We had the impression that it was the Holy Father. Other bishops, priests, men and women religious going up a steep mountain at the top of which there was a big cross of rough-hewn trunks as of a cork tree with the bark. Before reaching there, the Holy Father passed through a big city, half in ruins and half trembling, with halting step, afflicted with pain and sorrow. He prayed for the souls of the corpses he met on his way. Having reached the top of the mountain, on his knees at the foot of the big cross, he was kneeled by a group of soldiers who fired bullets and arrows at him. And in the same way there died, one after another, the other bishops, priests, men and women religious, and various lay people of different ranks and positions. Beneath the two arms of the cross there were two angels, each with a crystal appersorium in his right hand, in which they gathered up the blood of the martyrs, and with it sprinkled the souls that were making their way to God, unquote. This was what, again, Shepherdess Lucia Santos had written down. Now, Our Lady of Fatima then gave further instructions to Lucia. Quote, "Remember, you must not tell this to anyone except Francisco," unquote. Our Lady continued, quote, "When you pray the rosary, say after each mystery, 'O my Jesus, forgive us, save us from the fire of hell, lead all souls to heaven, especially those who are most in need,' unquote." Lucia then asked Our Lady of Fatima, quote, "Is there anything more that you want of me?" unquote. Our Lady responded, quote, "No, I do not want anything more of you today," unquote. At this juncture, in the third apparition, Our Lady of Fatima then ascended towards the east, just as she had before, until she finally disappeared in the immense darkness of the firmament. Again, these are teachings of Catholic Catechism instructors. Now, let's take a look at this astrology chart I've prepared for you, focused on July 13th, 1917, which was third apparition of Our Lady of Fatima in the country of Portugal, when 3 shepherd children returned as Our Lady instructed them. So we're going to show you now. This is the chart we've prepared. We're going to have the lights come up a little, okay? Yeah. Now, and we're also going to zoom in a little bit on this for you. Okay, now we're going to zoom out again a little bit here, because we'd like to show you that here is the way that the astrology chart is set up according to Rosicrucian Kabbalah, according to the way the astrological colors are, and it's what an adept, a Rosicrucian adept, puts on their rainbow wand, and we'll show you one of those later on in some of our other videos when we get into some more Rosicrucian ceremonial magic. Now, that's basically Christian Kabbalah, Rosicrucianism. Now, we're getting into here. This is the zodiac that I've prepared for you. Zodiac is Mazzaroth in Hebrew, and again, this is for July 13th of 1917, and it's Fatima, Portugal, and it's at noon Zohar. And this is going to, again, this is when she appeared, the day when she, and the time when she appeared to the three shepherd children, Lucia, Jacinta, and Francisco. Okay? Now, astrology aspects for July 13, 1917 in Fatima, Portugal, third apparition of Our Lady of Fatima are as follows. Okay, now we're going to, let's zoom in again. Okay, zoom in again. Okay, there we go. Now, what we want to begin with is, we want to start out with the, we're going to try to, we're going to show you first the sun in Cancer at 20 degrees. The sun here in the sign of Cancer at 20 degrees. And it's at 26 minutes in the 10th horoscope house of social standing and fame. Planetary Archangel Michael visits dwelling of Zodiac Angel Muriel. Now please keep in mind that this is not, on this day, this wasn't a natural chart. This is a chart which is where it's wheels within wheels, like Merkaba, wheels within wheels, Mer meaning rotating fields of light, wheels within wheels, Ka meaning spirit, and Ba meaning soul. So Merkaba, this is what astrology is about. It's about Merkaba. Okay, now, because it's not just, of course, it's not on just a two-dimensional plane. It's spherical, and it's even, it goes into hyperspheres. People, you know, there's many dimensions in Kabbalah, and not just 3 or 4 or 5 dimensions. There's many dimensions. So, you know, there's basically, we start off teaching about 10 with one invisible Sephirah of Da'ath, which we'll get into at another time. But suffice it to say that this is not a natural chart, so that the sun is in Cancer. It's in the 10th horoscope house. Again, that's of social standing and fame. Also keep in mind that the Archangel Michael associated with the sun and the Son of God, Jesus Christ, is associated with the sun, being the sun in the middle, the sun in the middle, the 13th, inside the 12 disciples. And many covens are set up that way. The 13th, the high priest or high priestess, in the center of 12 around. Okay, so we've got Jesus with the 12 disciples. We've got the sun with the 12 signs of the zodiac, and each of the disciples is associated with the zodiac sign. And there are some videos we have out about that. We'll get into that another time. Okay, so also, not only is Jesus associated with the Archangel Michael and the sun, but also Jesus is associated with his mother, that she's being associated with the Archangel Gabriel. So his mother, the Blessed Virgin Mary, is associated with the Archangel Gabriel. Okay, and also the Archangel Gabriel rules over the moon, and it rules over all the water signs. Okay, so the moon was in Taurus back in 1917 on July 13th. It was in the moon was in the sign of Taurus here. The moon in the sign of Taurus at 14 degrees 55 minutes in 8th horoscope house of birth, sex, death, and debt. Planetary Archangel Gabriel visits habitation of Zodiac Angel Asmodel. Okay, now Mercury was in the sign of Cancer, the crab, at 21 degrees. Mercury was here in Cancer, 21 degrees, 21 minutes in 10th horoscope house of social standing and fame. Planetary Archangel Raphael visits the abode of Zodiac Angel Muriel. Remember that Zodiac Angel Muriel is for Cancer, but the crab, but for Archangel Raphael is for the planet Mercury, associated with St. Paul. I told you they have associations with saints as well, and archangels. Now, we have the planet Venus in Leo at 11 degrees 22 minutes in 11th horoscope house of friends and reputation. Planetary Archangel Aniel visits dwelling of Zodiac Angel Virchiel. Okay, Mars in Gemini, was in Gemini. Mars was in the sign of Gemini at 20 degrees 0 minutes in 9th horoscope house of life path meaning. Planetary seraphim Samael visits habitation of zodiac angel Umbriel. It's important to mention here that although in 2018 there's going to be some retrograde aspects to Mars and Saturn, which can be quite intense. In 1917, there were no retrograde planets at that time. Okay? And they were in different locations. Okay, so again, we have Mars in Gemini. Mars in Gemini back in 1917 at 20 degrees 0 minutes in 9th horoscope house. House of life path meaning, again, planetary seraphim Samael visits habitation of zodiac angel Umbriel. Jupiter was in Gemini at 2 degrees. We had Jupiter in sign of Gemini at 2 degrees 43 minutes in 9th horoscope house of life path meaning. Planetary archangel Sachiel visits abode of zodiac angel Umbriel on that day. We had the planet Saturn, which is Shabbatai in Hebrew. Saturn, Shabbatai. We're going to give you the Hebrew names of the constellations, the Hebrew constellations, not the Hebrew month, but the Hebrew constellations, and the name of the planets in Hebrew after this. So Saturn, or Shabbatai, was here in the sign of Leo, which is, it's a month of Av, but the month of Av it's associated with, but it's associated with the Hebrew constellation is Ari, or the Ari, the Ari, or the Ari. That's the Lion of Judah, the Ari, the Lion of Judah. Okay, so that's Shabbatai is in the Ari, or Saturn in Leo. Just different language, that's all. So, you know, all languages are sacred to the people that have the genetics, and it's good to use the language that's associated with your genetics. Otherwise, it'll work better for you. Unless, of course, sometimes when you're doing magic, you have to use a word that is words that are speaking of the language that your left brain doesn't immediately understand, because then you don't have the lust for results that you get when you know what you're talking about when you're speaking your own language. So, you know, you have to sort of see how it makes you feel. When it makes you feel certain, you know you've done your magic properly, and and every ritual. Magic is simply the science behind how ritual works. Rituals do work. Miracles are real. Miracles do work. And magic is simply the science, the quantum physics, and even beyond that, behind how miracles work. And if we know how they work, then we can have more and more miracles. Okay, coming of these wonderful beings coming from these other dimensions, were obviously the saints and the angels and Blessed Virgin Mary and Jesus were obviously Jesus Christ was from another dimension. Obviously, he wouldn't have been able to do what he does. And when we allow ourselves to go to that other dimension, we then are a Christ. Christ is not a name, it's an anointing. It's the anointed one. He was anointed with crocodile oil. It's given to the presidents of the United States, are given that type of title. Christ is a president, is a pharaoh. A Christ is a, you know, it's the same thing. Is a Führer, is a pharaoh, is a Christ, is a president. All the same thing. Okay, just different languages. We can't say that one person's language is good while somebody else's language is bad. Just different languages, and we have to be very understanding of other people's languages. Okay, and cultures. As long as they don't hurt somebody, you know, cultures should be celebrated as long as they don't hurt people, right? Okay, now, the significant aspects of 7 ancient planets on July 13th of 1917 are as follows. This is what was going on regarding the planetary facets, how they were aligned with each other regarding squares and parallels and that kind of thing, okay? What we had on that day, in July 13, 1917, 12 noon, we had the Sun conjunct Mercury. So we had in this Sun conjunct Mercury here. The Moon was square Venus. Moon was square Venus, this red line here. The Moon was parallel Jupiter. Moon parallel with Jupiter. That's this purple line we put right here. And we're going to have these on our up on our on Facebook and also on Google. So you can, we have where we put our readings by Rosemary, and on Facebook, and the Astrology Angel on Google, where you can see these closely. We can examine these closely. Okay, and the moon parallel Jupiter in this purple line here, and the moon parallel Saturn. The moon parallel Saturn, this purple line here. Okay, now Mercury was conjunct the Sun. So Mercury and the Sun conjunct Mercury parallel Mars. Mercury parallel Mars with that purple line there. Venus was square the moon. Venus was square the moon in that red line there. And Venus parallel with Jupiter. Venus parallel with Jupiter is that purple line there. Venus parallel Jupiter, that purple line there. And Mars parallel Mercury. Mars parallel Mercury, the purple line there. Jupiter was sextile Saturn. Jupiter, the green line here, sextile Saturn. Jupiter parallel the moon, that purple line. Jupiter parallel Venus, that's that purple line. Jupiter was parallel Saturn. Jupiter parallel Saturn, that purple line. Saturn was sextile Jupiter, that's this green line here. Saturn parallel the moon. Saturn parallel the moon, that purple line there. And Saturn parallel Jupiter, and that is that purple line there. Now for the Hebrew calendar, associations in Zodiac. Remember, to say Zodiac, the word is Mazaroth in Hebrew. The sun is called in Hebrew, it is called Hama, and in Latin it is called Sol. So where you get the word soul from. So the sun, and it was in that, on that day it was in the sign of Cancer, which the Hebrew constellation is called Sartan. That's not the Hebrew month of Tammuz associated with Cancer, the crab. It is the constellation, the other name of it is Sartan. Okay, now the moon is called Levana in Hebrew, and it's called Luna in Latin. And on that day in 1917, on July 13th, it was in Taurus, the bull. In Taurus, the bull, the Hebrew word is Shor. The Hebrew constellation is Shor. Now Mercury is called Kokav. Mercury in the sign of Cancer. So we have Kokav in Sartan. The constellation, Hebrew constellation is Sartan. So Mercury is Kokav, Kokab or Kokav, because B and V is interchangeable in Hebrew. So Kokav in the sign of Cancer, or in the constellation of Sartan. Okay, constellation of Cancer, constellation of Sartan, same thing. Now Venus, planet Venus, is called Noga in Hebrew. So Venus, that's Noga, was in the sign or the constellation of Leo, the lion. Leo, the lion, the lion of Judah, the Ari, the Hebrew constellation, the Ari, the lion of Judah. Mars, the planet Mars, in Hebrew is Ma'adim, was in the sign of Gemini, or in the constellation of Gemini. Teomim is in Hebrew is a constellation of Teomim. Now Jupiter is called, the planet Jupiter is called Zedek in Hebrew, and it was in the sign of Gemini, the twins, and that the sign or the constellation of Gemini in Hebrew, the constellation is called Teomim. Okay, that's Jupiter here, right here, the blue one, and the other one's Mars. Okay, so this one is Jupiter. Now Saturn is called Shabbatai, and Saturn on that day was in the sign here of Leo the lion. the Lion of Judah, the constellation of Leo, or the Ari, the Lion of Judah. Information found in this document is based on the oral tradition known as Kabbalah, taught to me by Rosicrucian clergy when I was but a young girl, the facts of which I have committed to memory. Thank you for joining us, and please join us again.